Guys, Eva is a character we've already seen in-game in patch 5.5, and as one of the few lucky male characters to see the light of the sun in Genshin nowadays, he has drawn quite the interest from the community. He's becoming playable in patch 5.6, so today I'll analyze his kit from the beta to tell you what you should expect. So, Eva is a 4-star animo character, and surprise surprise, is Catalyst, marking the third consecutive release of this element and weapon type after Lanyan and Mizuki. However, he's the first animo character from the Nathan roster, and this, by default, gives him some nice potential and uniqueness because he's the only one from Nathan that can buff animo damage through it. Having said this, his kit is not that of a support though, he's mainly a main carry actually. In fact, through his skill he enters his Night Soul state, in which he grabs his little bird and starts flying around. During that, he can continuously hit an opponent with pistol shots while on field. The duration of this is of around 10 seconds of field time, and he can get 12 hits off in total. Other than doing damage, these hits also have a valuable second effect, as they heal the whole team by an amount that partially depends on his elemental mastery. At Constellation 0, however, this isn't very high even with a full elemental mastery build, as on average it will heal around 400 or 500 per tick, so at most you can expect around 6000 healing per rotation. Also, this is very important, while the healing skills of elemental mastery is damage ability scales of attack, meaning that you'll have to sacrifice one of the two depending on how you build him. However, it needs to be said that as an animo character, he still retains some nice damage properties by building elemental mastery. His hits have pretty nice internal cooldown, he will apply animo every second shot, so you'll be able to trigger reactions quite consistently. Mainly his words, but secondarily also chain reactions like electrocharge. For these two in particular, through his passive, he increases their damage bonus depending on how many Night Soul points the team consumes. This amount caps at 180 at Constellation 0 and 230 at Constellation 2, so he can quite maximize it himself through his own Night Soul consumption, since its bar is of 80 points. A valuable teammate here is Ororon, a character that is practically made for electrocharge teams, also because he has nice internal cooldowns and can trigger quite a lot of reactions. Before I move on, I want to show you this beautiful gift I got from Ugreen. Ugreen is a company that primarily makes chargers, and recently they started a surprising collab with Genshin Impact. Let me just tell you, they really knocked it out of the park with this one. The collab is based on Kinich, which is very actual since we just been to Natlan in Genshin. If you like Kinich, this is basically a dream come true, because everything is so thematically accurate. The headliners here are the Ahau and Kinich themed power bank, the 100W cable with a really cool Ahau themed tie organizer, the Kinich themed charger that has 3 ports, and the wireless charger that has Scions of the Canopy motifs. Additionally, they added a lot of cool gadgets to this package that really helped giving identity and style to this collab in my opinion. As for the chargers themselves, they have pretty amazing technical specs. The power bank has a 20,000 mAh superior capacity with a 130W dual port output. With it, you'll be able to charge 3 devices simultaneously with fast charge, and it's compatible with all kinds of Android phones, iPhones, and even PCs. As for the normal charger, it also has 3 ports at 65W output, and something I like here is its portability, since it's very slim and can fit in all kinds of tight spaces. Again, even this one is able to charge 3 devices at the same time, which comes quite in handy. Lastly, the wireless charger, that has a Qi 2 certification and an output of 15W of fast charging for iPhones. If you check the link in the description below, you'll be able to find all of these fantastic Kinich-themed fast charging adventure kits, while also getting up to 30% off on the cost and the possibility to enter Ugreen's massive giveaway, so that hopefully you can win the same package I got. Anyway, moving on with the rest of Eva's kit, the burst is kinda basic. It's just an animo attack that initiates a grouping effect and then launches a smaller attack after it comes in contact with another element. This second attack will naturally infuse that element. Both of these damage instances scale of attack, so again, they won't really be significant if you build him with elemental mastery. The grouping also seems to be kinda minimal as of right now, so overall there is not a lot going on for him here. Constellations-wise, they're for the most part just decent, except his Constellation 6, which really changes him for the better. Basically, after each pistol hit during his elemental skill stance, he has a 50% chance to throw an extra shot which will deal some damage. These shots have the same properties as the primary shots, so they count for the internal cooldown and even activate the healing effect. Basically, the Constellation 6 will increase his base damage by a good amount, but more importantly, it will increase his reaction and healing frequency by almost 50%. To further evaluate him, I'll show a few team calculations, but first let me remind you that if you enjoy my channel but you haven't subbed yet, please consider doing so because it really makes me notice your support. So, Ifa's main role is that of a reaction driver that can heal the team while on field. Think of him as you think of Sucro's carry or Mizuki. Compared to Mizuki specifically, he has a couple main advantages, most notably that his elemental skill attacks will trigger the coordinated attacks of characters such as Yelan, Xingqiu, and Fischl, core members of Electrocharge teams. Secondarily, his healing will affect the whole team instead of just him, so it gives him better synergy with Fiorina. The flip side, however, is that his healing at Constellation 0 is pretty atrocious. It amounting to just 5000 or 6000 per rotation means that it'll heal characters at a slower rate than Fiorina consumes their HP, and this becomes especially noticeable when high HP characters are on the team. Since Fiorina consumes a fixed percent of HP every time, the consumption is higher for high HP characters, meaning they will require even more healing to get it back and make the team consistent. Ifa's healing for them is honestly roughly comparable to Prototype Ember. In fact, by giving Sucro's Prototype Ember, you basically get Ifa with extra steps. Ifa himself, however, can use Ember, and that should make things considerably better. Honestly speaking, Electrocharge with an Anemo driver isn't a team I like to calculate in single target, because it becomes much better in AoE, where Swerves can propagate elements towards multiple opponents and trigger chain Electrocharge reactions that way. Also, of course, having Auroron here makes the AoE potential even better. However, AoE is kinda unpredictable because you can't guarantee every hit will hit every target, so I still prefer to assume single target even for these scenarios. The calc is still valuable for matter of comparison to other similar teams, in this case Sucro's Taser. At Constellation 0, Ifa performs a bit worse than a Sucro's at Constellation 6 here, but with his own Constellation 6, things change significantly. In the second case, he heals enough that he can ditch Prototype Ember for a better offensive weapon, such as Hakushin Ring, which buffs the whole team's damage bonus. To be completely honest though, even if you can make the coexistence with Fiorina a bit better by using Prototype Ember or getting his Constellation 6, actually surviving is a whole other deal, because this team will feel very fragile with this kind of healing. For this reason, replacing Fiorina or Yelan with Xingqiu at the cost of losing a bit of damage seems totally worth it. Overall, a Constellation 0 Ifa is worse in his primary role than a Sucro's Constellation 6 is in her secondary role, but the Constellation 6 gives Ifa the tools he needs to actually fulfill his main purpose. Additionally, if you want to build him for damage, his Constellation 6 does open up some potential for it, but nothing particularly impressive. It did look more promising a week ago, but the most recent beta changed the wording of the Constellation 6 and nerfed it significantly. Before, it looked decent, but now a Constellation 6 is about at the level of a DPS from 2020, to be honest. A negative I haven't talked about is that during his kill, it doesn't seem he can dodge, at least it doesn't seem from the gameplay animations, and also he has no interruption resistance in his kit, so it may be a worse situation than Wanderers, a nightmare. Speaking about Wanderer, as I said before, Ifa as a Nathan character can hold the Cinder City to buff Anemo damage for the team. Additionally, as a Catalyst user, he can also hold Thrilling Tales, which makes him quite a support for an attack scaling character like Wanderer. His application is relatively slow, I will say, because you'll have to use the skill, then a normal attack to actually apply Anemo and trigger the set, and then plunge on the field before he can swap. Overall though, he's actually competitive with Fiorina in this role, who is Wanderer's best in slot, so he's pretty solid, and he also makes the team more consistent energy-wise since it generates either 4 or 5 particles on use. Overall, as for my ending thoughts, I'm a bit puzzled, I must say. I think it's nice that Oyoverse is giving more love to the Taser archetype, but as the second carry for this team to release in the last 3 patches, I think they did another half-assed job. I get that he's a 4-star, and unless you're from Liyue releasing on Lantern Rite, you're probably not gonna be an amazing carry if you're a 4-star. But his flaws at Constellation 0 seem really annoying, and even at Constellation 6, it doesn't seem like he pushes this archetype much further than it previously was, and previously it wasn't that great really. And with this, I'm done for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, also go check Hugh Green in the link in the description below, and also go check the last video I made on Escoffier. Bye bye.